Highway 61 was never meant to feel this empty. It cut through the American countryside like a forgotten scar, stretching mile after mile under a moon that offered no comfort. Ethan Cole had driven this road dozens of times before, but tonight it felt unfamiliar, as if the asphalt itself was holding its breath. His pickup truck rolled forward steadily, headlights carving a narrow path through the dark. The radio hummed a low country tune, but even that sounded distant, like it was coming from another place. Ethan kept his eyes on the road, hands firm on the steering wheel. At 38, he had learned not to overthink late-night drives. He was a man who believed roads were just roads and nights were just nights. Still, something pressed on his chest, a quiet unease he couldn't name. The fields on either side were black and silent. No farmhouse lights, no passing cars. Not even insects sang. It felt wrong in a way that logic couldn't explain. The dashboard clock blinked 1:42 a.m. That was when he saw the flashing lights. Orange hazard lights pulsed ahead on the shoulder, slow and steady. Ethan eased off the gas. A dark sedan sat crooked near the edge of the road, hood raised like a silent signal for help. He told himself it was nothing unusual. People broke down all the time. Still, his foot hesitated before the brake, as if some instinct wanted him to keep driving. After a moment, he pulled over anyway. The engine clicked as it cooled. Silence rushed in, thick and heavy. Silence rushed in, thick and heavy. Ethan stepped out, boots crunching softly on asphalt. The air was colder than it should have been for late summer, and strangely still. He looked up the highway, nothing. He looked down the other way, still nothing. The blinking hazard lights seemed louder now. Each flash, counting seconds he couldn't get back. "Hello?" he called. His voice vanished into the night without an echo. He approached the sedan cautiously. The hood was raised, but when he placed a hand on the metal, it was cold, far too cold for a car that had supposedly just broken down. A chill ran through him. He leaned closer, peering into the cabin. The driver's seat was empty. No purse. No phone, no keys. The doors were unlocked. Ethan straightened slowly. His pulse quickened. He scanned the roadside grass. No footprints, no disturbed weeds. Whoever owned this car hadn't walked away. They had vanished. A crackle burst from his truck's radio behind him. He turned sharply. Static hissed. Then a voice slipped through low, calm, and unmistakably clear. "You're late." Ethan froze. His mouth went dry. He stared at the truck as the radio went silent again, as if nothing had happened. He told himself it was interference, fatigue, his mind playing tricks. Still, his heart hammered as he climbed back into the cab and locked the doors. "Get a grip," he muttered. He started the engine and pulled back onto the highway. But the road didn't feel the same. The lane markings appeared brighter, sharper, almost too perfect. The asphalt looked smoother, unreal, like it had been freshly laid just for him. Ethan glanced at his GPS. The screen flickered, then displayed a single message. "No, no, no, signal, no, 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 no." Signal. The radio clicked on again, without his touch. "You don't like stoppin'," a different voice said, almost amused. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. "Who is this?" he demanded, but the voice didn't answer. The radio switched back to music, as if mocking him. The highway curved gently to the right. Ethan frowned. Highway 61 didn't curve here. He knew this road. Or at least, he thought he did. The fields beside him looked flat and endless, swallowed by darkness that his headlights couldn't fully reach. A faint glow appeared ahead, warm and inviting. Relief washed through him as a roadside rest stop came into view, its lights buzzing softly against the night. He pulled in. The lot was empty, but the place looked open. Vending machines hummed. A single bench sat beneath a flickering lamp. For the first time since stopping, Ethan felt his breathing slow. He stepped out, stretching stiff muscles, telling himself he'd grab a drink and calm down. That was when he noticed the man on the bench, mid-30s, baseball cap pulled low, hands resting calmly on his knees. He looked like someone who belonged there, as if he'd been waiting a long time. The man raised his head and met Ethan's eyes, a faint smile on his lips. "You lost?" the man asked. Ethan opened his mouth to answer, but the words caught in his throat. Something about the man felt familiar in a way that made his skin prickle. Behind them, the highway stretched on, longer than it should have been, disappearing into darkness that felt alive. In that moment, Ethan understood one simple truth. This night wasn't normal, and Highway 61 wasn't done with him yet. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe for more strange tales. The highway hummed a lonely tune, a ribbon of asphalt stretching into an endless, watchful dark. I stood there, under the nervous flicker of the rest stop lights, my hand still gripping the truck door like an anchor. The man on the bench had risen. He was just a few steps away, his stillness a stark contrast to the buzzing neon sign above him. The silence between us felt heavy, like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting. "You didn't answer my question," he said, his voice quiet but clear. "Do you remember why you stopped here?" I shook my head, the motion feeling slow, disconnected. "I just needed some air. That's all," he nodded. A slow, deliberate movement. "That's what you told yourself back then, too." A cold shiver, sharp and sudden, traced a path down my spine. Who was this guy? "I don't know you," I said, my voice firmer this time, trying to reclaim some control. "And I don't like games." I didn't wait for a reply. I turned, climbed into the driver's seat, and twisted the key in the ignition. Nothing. The engine was dead. Not a cough, not a sputter. The dashboard lights flashed once, a weak, pathetic blink, and then vanished, plunging the cab into darkness. I tried again, my hand twisting the key with more force. Still nothing. My heart started to hammer against my ribs, my breathing shallow and quick. A soft tap on the window made me jump. I flinched, turning my head to see the man standing right beside my door, his face a distorted reflection in the glass. "You can't leave yet," he said, his voice muffled. "Not like this." I rolled the window down, just a crack. "What do you want from me?" My voice was tight, strained. He stepped back, giving me a little space. "I want you to stop pretending." "Pretending what?" I snapped, frustration boiling over. "That you don't remember the rain?" he said, and each word landed like a stone. "That you don't remember the headlights?" That you don't remember slowing down. My jaw clenched. The dam I'd built for years began to crack. Uninvited images flooded my mind, slick wet pavement glowing under red taillights. A car pulled over on the shoulder, its hazard lights blinking a weak, desperate rhythm. My hands, gripping the steering wheel now, started to tremble. I didn't cause it, I whispered, the words barely audible even to myself. No, he agreed, his voice surprisingly gentle. But you saw it. The rest stoplights buzzed louder, flickering erratically as if they were fighting to stay alive. That's when I noticed the vending machines nearby. They were empty, their metal frames rusted and ancient. This place, ... It didn't feel like a rest stop. It felt like a memory, frozen and decaying. I couldn't help, I said, the old excuse tasting like ash in my mouth. I was tired. It was late. And so you kept driving, he finished for me. You told yourself someone else would stop. A sharp gust of wind cut through the lot, cold and biting. My eyes drifted past the man toward the edge of the light, and I saw them. Shapes. Figures standing just beyond the reach of the lamps. Perfectly still, watching. I couldn't make out their faces, but I could feel their presence, a heavy pressure building in my chest. Who are they? I asked, my voice trembling. The man didn't turn to look. They're the moments that waited for you. That's not real, I said, but the words lacked any real conviction. My own voice sounded hollow. He finally turned his gaze back to me, his eyes seeming to pierce right through the glass. Neither is this road. Yet here it is. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. Why now? Why are you here? Because you're tired of running, he said simply. Even if you won't admit it to yourself. I glanced back toward the darkness. The figures seemed closer now, though I knew they hadn't moved an inch. The air felt thick, heavy, like the night itself was closing in, suffocating me. What happens if I don't listen? I asked, the question hanging in the charged air between us. His voice dropped, becoming low and somber. Then you keep driving. The same stretch of road, the same silence. Weight on your chest, every single night, for the rest of your life. A chilling thought, the endless road, the same gnawing feeling. Forever, and if I do, I asked, a flicker of something, maybe hope, maybe just desperation igniting within me. If I listen to you, what then? The man's gaze shifted towards the highway. In the far distance, a familiar curve in the road appeared, illuminated by a pale, ethereal glow. My heart sank as a wave of cold recognition washed over me. I knew that curve. I knew that glow. We go back, he said, to where you chose not to stop. I stared at the road, at that ghost of a memory made real. For years, I had outrun it, buried it under thousands of miles of asphalt and countless sleepless nights. But standing here, in this strange, timeless place, I knew it had never really left me. It was always there, riding shotgun. I can't change what happened, I said quietly, the fight draining out of me. No, he replied, but you can face it. And just like that, the wind died down. The frantic buzzing of the rest stop lights steadied, casting a calm, even glow over everything. For the first time since I'd pulled off the highway, the world felt completely still. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The trembling in my hands finally stopped. "Okay," I said, the word feeling monumental. "I'll go." The man stepped aside, clearing the path between my truck and the highway. "Good," he said, a hint of approval in his tone. "Because this time, you don't drive past." I reached for the door handle. As my fingers touched the cold metal, the truck roared to life on its own. The engine, once silent and dead, now hummed with a powerful, steady rhythm, its headlights cutting a bright path into the waiting darkness. I didn't hesitate. I put the truck in drive and pulled out of that forgotten place, leaving the strange man and the silent watchers behind. The truck felt different now, alive and purposeful. I was heading back. Back to the rain, back to the flashing lights, back to the moment that had been haunting my every waking mile. I didn't know what I would find there, or what would happen when I faced it. But for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't running from it. I was driving toward it. And somehow, I knew that was the only way forward. A familiar curve in the road, one I knew even before my headlights fully illuminated it. My stomach twisted into a knot. "This is it," I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. That's when his voice came, calm and steady from the passenger seat. "You've been here before?" I flinched, startled, but I didn't dare look over. My eyes stayed glued to the road ahead. A familiar curve in the road, one I knew even before my headlights fully illuminated it. My stomach twisted into a knot. "This is it," I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. That's when his voice came, calm and steady from the passenger seat. "You've been here before?" I flinched, startled, but I didn't dare look over. My eyes stayed glued to the road ahead. Before my headlights fully illuminated it. My stomach twisted into a knot. "This is it," I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. That's when his voice came, calm and steady from the passenger seat. "You've been here before?" I flinched, startled, but I didn't dare look over. My eyes stayed glued to the road ahead. I never stopped thinking about it, I admitted, the words tasting like ash. I just pretended I did. As if on cue, rain began to fall. It started as a light patter, then quickly turned into a downpour. The windshield became a blurry canvas of streaks and reflections. As if on cue, rain began to fall. It started as a light patter, then quickly turned into a downpour. The windshield became a blurry canvas of streaks and reflections, distorting the world outside into a nightmare of light and shadow. The rhythmic drumming of the rain was a soundtrack to the memories that came crashing back, too fast, too sharp to push away this time. Up ahead, through the watery haze, faint hazard lights flickered. My breathing grew shallow, quick. "There?" the stranger said, his voice cutting through my rising panic. "That's where you slowed down." The scene unfolded exactly as it had in my mind 1,000 times. A car pulled over on the shoulder. One headlight was smashed, dark. The other blinked unevenly, like a weak, failing heartbeat. Time itself seemed to warp, stretching out as I got closer. The truck felt like it was moving through molasses. This time, I eased my foot off the gas. The roar of the engine softened to a low rumble. This time, I pulled over. The moment the truck came to a complete stop, the relentless rain softened to a gentle patter. The night, grew strangely quiet. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and stepped out. My boots hit the wet pavement with a soft splash. The cold air seeped through my jacket, softened to a low rumble. This time, I pulled over. The moment the truck came to a complete stop, the relentless rain softened to a gentle patter. The night grew strangely quiet. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and stepped out. But I forced myself to walk forward, one step at a time, toward the flickering lights. The stranded car looked even worse up close. The driver's side door was ajar, and inside, a young woman was slumped against the seat. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and pain. She looked up as I approached, her gaze locking onto mine. "You stopped," she whispered, her voice fragile. My chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. I knelt beside the open door, the damp asphalt soaking through my jeans. "I'm here," I said, my own voice trembling. "I won't leave you." The stranger stood a few steps back, a silent observer in the unfolding drama. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed for help. And then I just stayed with her. I talked to her, my voice as steady and calm as I could make it, even as my hands shook uncontrollably. It slowed to a light drizzle, and then, in the distance, we heard it. The faint wail of sirens, growing louder with every passing second. The woman's grip tightened on my sleeve, a small, anchoring pressure. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. And in that moment, something inside of me, something that had been broken for so long, finally began to heal. The flashing red and blue lights of the emergency vehicles finally sliced through the darkness, painting the scene in strobing colors. As the first responders arrived, the world around me seemed to shift. The rain stopped completely. The road brightened, as if a veil had been lifted. The oppressive grip of the night loosened. I stood back, watching as the paramedics took over, their movements efficient and professional, and I felt light, lighter than I had in years. The ghost that had haunted my every mile was finally quiet. When I turned, the stranger was beside me again. "It doesn't erase the past," he said quietly, his voice carrying over the bustle of the scene. "I know," I replied, the truth of it settling deep in my bones. "But it changes me." The stranger nodded slowly, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "That's all this road ever wanted." The emergency lights began to fade. The highway grew quiet again. I blinked, and when I looked around, everything was gone. The car, the responders, the flashing lights, even the lingering smell of rain. It was just me and my truck, parked safely on the shoulder of an empty highway. Dawn was breaking on the horizon, painting the sky in soft strokes of blue and gold. The night felt distant now, like a vivid dream that had finally released its hold on me. I looked over at the passenger seat. It was empty. I signaled. I pulled over. As I stepped out of my cab, ready to help, a profound realization washed over me. The road no longer followed me, because this time I had finally chosen to stop. I signaled. I pulled over. As I stepped out of my cab, ready to help, a profound realization washed over me. The road no longer followed me, because this time I had finally chosen to stop. I signaled. I pulled over. As I stepped out of my cab, ready to help, a profound realization washed over me. The road no longer followed me, because this time, I had finally chosen to stop.